about the building blocks of living systems. That is, uh, there is the cell. Okay. Just give me a second. So what guys, we have learned about the origin of life, and we learned about the diversities of life. Okay, what are the ways life can vary. Learned about the diversities also. What are the kinds of life possible on the surface of Earth? Other planets we don't know, so we do not. We cannot say that yes, life should be that way. That way, we cannot. Whatever extreme ends of living systems, living forms, we know it all from the living forms, whatever is present on the Earth, because we do not know of life existence on any other planet. Okay, as of yet, we haven't yet discovered. Maybe other the alien races, they might have discovered Earth, but we haven't yet discovered. So, so we understood that life could form on Earth via a couple of proofs and some experimental proofs. What proofs? One is the extraterrestrial proofs. That is, you can have certain meteorites or asteroid pieces striking to the surface of Earth. That could bring life, living forms. Some forms which we know that archaea could be one kind of form, and archaea is a kind of bacteria, archaebacteria, eubacteria. We just discussed that in Monera phylum, Monera phylum. So that those bacteria could come here, and they can really start the life. Okay. What bacteria? What are these archaebacteria? These archaebacteria are single-celled living forms. Okay, and they can live in extreme high temperature environment. They do not need oxygen for the starting. They can tolerate heat. They can tolerate radiations. They can sustain in extreme cold environment, that is the space. So yes, it sounds good that these are resilient species and they can really sustain this. Another way, through the biotic origin, we learned from the Miller's experiment. We knew that if we create certain specific conditions uh, of physical parameters like electric discharge, UV rays, temperature, high temperature, and parallelly we provide good chemical substrates, which is of course very simple in nature. Then at the end, it is possible that we can get complex molecules. These complex molecules are very much similar to the one which we find in our body. Okay, so this is one the most closest proof that the life could potentially, which we understood as the chemistry only, and these chemistry or these chemicals, which are essentially found in living systems, could be produced abiotically without outside the living body, and that could be one of the initiation point where the life started. And now, before Miller came into picture, Halden they have Opper and Halden, they have proposed that life could have been, because they were the propounder of the theory. Miller had done the experiment. Opper and Halden has proposed this abiotic origin way of life. They didn't do any experiment though. They said that okay, with these specific conditions, the one Miller actually attempted, uh, these molecules could be produced, complex molecules could be produced, and this complex molecule could be dangled in a organic or a protoplastic soup. They like to call it a soup. But at the end, when Miller got it, they got a black charred soup. According to Oparin and Halden, they were expecting something like a bacterial cell. They were actually expecting something like a bacterial cell. But in case which Miller found, it is nothing close to that. Although he found all those molecules which could be possibly present in a cell. Okay, so now Miller experiments are being revisited. People are trying to get exactly a cell-like structure out of it. Now, why I'm discussing about the origin of life and is origin of life finally tries to explain how the single-celled organism, which are the first kind of organism, okay, came to Earth. Okay, we had this by the time Miller was there, we didn't have proof for this the Australian fossil. We haven't with that time we didn't get that. So there was simply speculation that some Archaebacteria or blue-green algae could be one of the initiator of life on the surface of Earth. So we understand here is that all the explanations are directed towards to explain how a cell originated and came to the surface of Earth. Now, once that cell came to the surface of Earth, what other living forms it creates? First, it creates multicellular organisms, then it creates diverse cellular organisms, then it creates complex organisms with a lot of division of levels. That is what diversity we learned. So we see a diverse form of living organisms now, all which is initially started with a single cell organisms. Now, this diverse forms of organisms, do they contain cells? Yes, when you really dissect them down, they contain cells. Individual units of their, when you cut down their tissues, you see everywhere there are cells. In fact, one most fascinating example I can give you here is even the most complex organism. We call it human or mammals, okay? One of the most complex organisms. These organisms, when they go out for reproduction, you have a single cell coming out of individual male and feminine bodies, and they form another single cell again, which again starts the second life, second generation. Okay, so that single cell keeps on dividing to become another 10 to the power 12 cells. Okay, so now this is why we need to understand initiation of life. Okay, it happens. It tries to explain how cells work, how cells came into picture, and diversity of life. You see cells only. So it is very essential to understand the how a cell is. What are its function? Is a cell in a bacteria and a human being same? Is a cell of a plant and a human being same? Are all animal cells same? Are all plant cells same? Individually, do I have a similar kind of cell all along my body? Okay. So we need to understand that. So this module would be on that. So first we'll understand the type term cell. What is this term cell is? The term cell initially was coined by Robert Hooke. He's a famous scientist, though. You would learn about him. So in his book called Micrographia, he pointed out he was doing a study. He invented a new kind of a microscope. This is a microscope actually, and this is a fire lamp. Okay, oil. This is the oil bath, and here is a lamp, and this lamp gives light. This is a ball, completely glass ball. It gives light here, focuses extremely into the sample here. This is a sample, and this is a microscope. Almost looks like a pen though, but this is a microscope. Two lenses are there. Okay, with this machine, with this invention, he is from London. So with this invention, he studied multiple things. One of the things were actually the thin slices of a bottle cork. This is a bottle, of course. Normally we have caps, but older times they used to have corks which can close the bottles. Corks are actually derived from tree bark. So tree bark, people take it out and they give it some shape. That becomes a cork. It's extremely light. Often shuttlecocks, when we play badminton, do have a cork beneath. Okay, if you remember shuttlecocks, those who play badmintons, they would know. Okay, in this portion has a cork. So if you want to test, you take a shuttlecock of yours or your brother's, take a slice of it and try to observe it under the macro mode of your mobile phone. You will realize a similar picture. Okay, so he said that, and he did not observe only cork. He observed many other living systems, and he said that all living systems he could see has microscopically has this empty room-like appearances. If you see here, these white lines are the filled lines, and the black areas are the empty spaces. These systems reminded him of cellula, Monk's cellula. We only think Buddhism, Jainism has had monks. Actually, Christians also do have monks, Christianism, and Christianity, I would say, also do have monks, and they used to stay in caves. Okay, so he recognized that this system looks like a cellula, which is a cave. Normally monks, even here in India, Jain caves looks like this. Okay, Buddhist caves are there. So how do they? There are small quarters in the rock all of a sudden. If you went to Ajanta, Ellora, you see those caves. In Odisha, we have certain Buddhist caves. So almost the rock is solid, and almost you will see small empty spaces here carved into the overall rock. These are called empty spaces, called cellula, or now we call it cellars. In Moldova, they have miles and miles of underground winery. Winery meaning places where they store, preserve wine. Okay, you see, these are called cellars. You see, individual thing is a cell, and they keep bottles of wines here. Okay, here we call them Moldova is famous. It has a Guinness Book of World Record for largest winery, underground winery in the world. So if you see these structures, these are in buildings, okay? Buildings. But if you take a real cork, okay, and take a slice of it and image it with a with your phone or under a microscope, you'll see these kind of empty spaces. So these empty spaces are called cells. Now, point here is that if these are called cells, how can we say these are functional? These are empty spaces. Empty spaces are hardly functional, isn't it? So, yes, the fact is correct. Empty spaces are, in case of living systems, they are not so functional. Not always. Some are functional. Empty spaces are functional. I would show you. And in larger perspective, in this term again comes here, cellular jail of Port Blair, Andaman Nicobar. You see, these are the small rooms or cells for the prisoners in Andaman Nicobar. Britishers have made this jail, and now it's a very important visitors spot of Andaman Nicobar. Cells also comes into picture when we say cellular material. Here, why we specifically generate cellular material? I'll come to the question I asked in the last class. How empty spaces are functional? Cellular materials are specifically designed. They did not simply come with defects. People design this material, make this material for specific purpose. Where do you use cellular materials? These kind of materials? Of course, your sponge is a cellular material, okay, for shock absorbing function. That's first. So this is solid cellular material. These are empty material. These are very organized. These materials are called stochastic, meaning very random. These are called very defined cellular materials. One of has a honeycomb-like structure also, you see here. Okay, these have a specific function. They can bear exceptional amount of load with minimum density of the material, overall material. Your concrete also comes in a cellular material because they leave air spaces inside that will bring resilience, insulation of forces, insulation of heat. So they are used in almost all fields of all walks of life. So the term cell is used in many other ways, and everything represents empty spaces. Okay, and empty spaces often are useful here in case of cellular materials. Overall, the whole empty spaces gives a special resilience to your materials. Now we say that empty spaces, can we call it, how can we call it a functional unit or something like that? So the functional unit, we can call them, actually Robert Hooke himself started defining it. The first thing, I'll come to Robert Hooke's work. First, let's see how was he able to see this. The first work was done by Zacharias Jensen. This is the first compound. He just took a telescope and he inverted it. Okay, did some engineering. So again, he has got this objective and eyepiece lenses, and he could magnify it somewhere 1500 century, very early. And in 1600 century, almost 100 years later, Robert Hooke brought this special way of doing it. Okay, this is a sample. Robert Hooke, while observing these things, he observed many things, many conclusions he took. Okay, these cell-like structures, when he see a dead, although cork is the first thing he saw, but he saw living slices of leaves. Here you can see a leaf, green leaf. A green leaf also has these things and doesn't have an empty space here. Some dot pigments are here. Okay. He likes to call it cellular because it's somewhere, you know, what do you say? Half space filled sort of, or mosaic sort of material. It looks like a mosaic material, but he loved to call it cellular. Okay. So when he saw many other living systems or living objects which had got life actually, which isn't dead. Cork is a dead plant tissue. He saw fluid-filled, liquid-filled parts here. With his microscope, he was able to observe some 50x magnification, 10 to 50x magnification. That was good enough. Later, after Robert Hooke, we have this Anton von Leeuwenhoek, who was more or less contemporary, but his work came a bit late. He had a completely different kind of microscope with which he was using a single lens, more or less, and he was able to achieve more than 200x magnification, 200 times magnification. So he was able to see all varieties of cells, and even RBCs he was able to see. In the blood, he was able to see RBCs. So there are some fun facts about Robert Hooke here. Robert Hooke was the first person who was a fellow and curator of Royal Society of Science in UK. He was an interdisciplinary scientist. You must know about the Hooke's law in elasticity. Robert Hooke was the pioneer for that. He worked in expansion of solids in presence of heat. So he was a physicist. He was a biologist. So that's why we call him a polymath. That time this is a term. Now we call interdisciplinary scientists. Or so he knew everything. And London people used to say that this is our answer, our substitute of Leonardo da Vinci in UK. But he had many of his biographers did not like his attitude, including Newton and followers of Isaac Newton, who came after Robert Hooke, and they had a bit of rivalry. Okay, so these are some unknown facts about Robert Hooke. So, nearing the later age of Robert Hooke itself, Anton von Leeuwenhoek, who was an Italian, he discovered, he invented a new kind of microscope. This I am not showing because his microscope wasn't taken forward, his model. The microscope what we have got has this kind of a model. But your mobile phone, it uses a macro mode with the Leeuwenhoek kind of lensing system. Okay, so preliminary work with Robert Hooke is he tried to see the microscopic how microscopically every object looked, and he saw biological objects had this cell kind of appearances, empty cells or fluid filled cells, but these do have small room like appearances. Okay, these were actually not completely empty. Cella means empty, but actually they are not empty. Okay, so then that was supported by Anton von Leeuwenhoek, who gave out a lot more evidences that Robert Hooke was correct. Okay, that is why we still call who coined the term cell. Robert Hooke is the person. Okay, and why we were interested in learning cells, because we got to know that yes, every organism is the smallest thing you can see a structure which is almost room-like arranged, and that is cells. So we understood that yes, that could be the basic functional unit of any kind of organisms. But the complete cell theory, which says that all organisms are made up of one or more cells, all life function is dependent on these cells, and each cell of this living organisms comes from the pre-existing cells. This is the cell theory. This theory wasn't complete until late 1800th century. 1600, by the time they have discovered everything, that whole 1700th century was a mess. After that, everybody started simply working on the. This is a very nice, storyboard or cartoon where Zacharias Jensen is actually inventing his small microscope. Then, of course, 100 years later, Robert Hooke came up with it. Okay, a cell of monks. Of course, Robert Brown, who was, I think he was a bit of junior to Robert Hooke, okay, or contemporary, I would say. He discovered a small opaque object. He discovered nucleus here in the cells. Okay, there is a nucleus, this dark object called nucleus. Where did he discovered? A thin film of orchid he took, and he discovered the nucleus there. Then these two gentlemen or scientists, they came into picture. Okay, Matthias Schleiden and Schwann. Okay, Theodor Schwann. They brought out that Schleiden brought in that all plants are made up of cells. He was a botanist. Schwann was a zoologist, animal biologist. He said that all animals are also made up of cells, individual cells. So when you actually break the animals, actually cells get separated. And then came Rudolf Virchow, who brought this idea. So majorly cell theory was jotted by Schleiden and Schwann. But in the late 1800th century, Rudolf Virchow took the cell theory of these first two terms. Okay, so first says that structural unit of life, second says that functional unit of life cells are. But how does the cell comes? Rudolf Virchow added this point here. Okay, so in Greek, how does it say? Hominis cellula e cellula. That's what they say in Greek. Okay. This is about the cell theory that everybody, that biologist, which started with Robert Hooke, that with a microscope we can study living organisms and we can see fascinating structures inside, and these structures are often functional as well, and you can see their functions happening. Okay, and finally, all the functions you see a large organisms can do, that is all governed by the cells. Okay, if there is a large organisms, they might have large number of cells. If it is a smaller organism, they might have smaller number of cells, because individual structural unit of living system as a cell. Can the cell itself be a bit of larger? In some cases only cells are a bit of larger. In rest other cases cells aren't larger. If you isolate one cell of my body and compared with that of a rat or goat RBCs, we will not see much of difference in the size. Although my weight would be double that of a goat weight. So you see that the size and dimensions of the cells, individual cells, doesn't change much, but their number changes significantly when the size of organisms changes. So this is about a basic introduction of cells and their structural theory. Now, what are the things we are going to learn in this module? In this module, of course, the concept of cell theory, we just completed that concept of cell theory. Okay, we started from Robert Hooke and ABL and Schwann and Schleiden, and of course Virchow. So this is how the overall progression of cell theory happened. And then we will learn about, see, if we understand that cells has to do everything, then how the cells are different. Is the cells are different in a prokaryote? Is the cell different in a human being, eukaryotes? What are the different level of organizations? Why prokaryote cannot form a complex organism? Why only eukaryote form complex organisms? These are certain questions we are going to answer. So if cells has to do complicated functions, what are the machineries they need to need? We have learned about complex molecules, and now we are talking about cells. How these complex molecules and cells are related, so that organelles and their functions will come into picture. Okay, and of course then we have the how the cells divide. We will try to understand how what Virchow said is cells can produce cells by themselves and cellulose. Okay, so that would be the content. We'll discuss more on this next class. If you have any doubts, you can ask. Yes, anybody wants to ask?
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, Shubham, please.
Sir, what were the topics of Module 1? So I am new here.
Shubham, you can go to the general portion of this team,
Yes, sir.
general channel of the team, and access the files uploaded. You will find all the introductory slide which has got the syllabus of the overall course and the slides which we have covered in the module 1. You can find it there.
Okay, sir.
Majorly we discussed about the origin of life and diversity of life and how to define life, what are the characteristics of life. The three major things we discussed about living systems. Okay. Any doubts regarding the class? I mean, whatever we discussed now. Okay. Yes. Anurag.
No doubt, sir.
Okay. Fine then. I will close the session now. If you have any doubts, you can write it in this Teams itself. I will try to answer those. Those who have joined late to the class, they can go through the materials or the slides. You can go to the respective channels also, you will find those videos existing. Okay, you can download the class videos, you can go through those, not a problem. Okay, then I'll take leave. Take care. Bye bye. See you on Wednesday.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.